How's it? Welcome back. So I had a comment come in wanting to know how I prepare myself for bed. And this question came from a local content creator guy over here. I am the jungle on Instagram. And you got to check out this dude's page, man. It's nuts. It's very entertaining, really damn funny, and you won't be disappointed. Anyway, so to answer the question, I'm going to come at it from kind of two different angles. Of course, we'll talk a bit about how I prepare myself for bed, but then I'll also talk a bit about what I'm doing as I'm falling asleep, because they really work hand in hand, right? Like, say you get your bed and everything set up absolutely perfectly ahead of time, but then you go to lie down and you're stuck just lying in bed trying to fall asleep the whole time, and that shit sucks. So knowing how to fall asleep is crucially important. So I'll cover that towards the end, but when it comes to preparing myself for bed, we'll get a few of the obvious things out of the way first, where you want to allow yourself time to wind down before you lie down, right? Which is actually like one aspect of my sleep practice that fucking sucks, right? Where, I still love to play way too much video games, and then my main video game time is at night after the family goes to sleep. So my wife and I will be up watching some show till like say 10:30, and then say when it ends, perhaps I'm feeling kind of tired and like I could lie down and fall asleep pretty quickly, but then this little kid part of my brain's like, I want to play video games and shit. So then I go upstairs to play games, and then whatever, an hour and a half or whatever goes by, it's like 12 or 12:30, and now I want to lie down and go to sleep. But say I was playing Call of Duty or something, and I was playing shitty or I was playing good or whatever, right? I'm just all amped up from gaming, and then lo and behold, I have a harder time falling asleep. So trying to avoid situations like that. I'm kind of similar to that, though. It'd be like, say if the news really stresses you out, you want to be mindful about when you're intaking that sort of information, right? Because say, you're watching the news, you have all this anxiety about all the crazy shit popping off around the world, and these wars and all this shit. So as you're going to sleep, that's stuck in your mind, you're having a hard time falling asleep. But then it's kind of like a double whammy, where since that's like the last thing on your mind before you actually fall asleep, is going to have a big influence on the type of dreams you're likely to have, particularly earlier on in the night. And then you can go from worrying about, a war potentially happening, and then next thing you know, you're actually in a war. So, be mindful of things like that. If you do like to watch, like, say, the later news directly before going to sleep, you could set aside, some time. Doesn't have to be too long, maybe like 10 minutes or so, to sit down in the room, have it all dark, stretch out, try to calm yourself down, maybe do like a meditation session right then and there. For me personally, I like to meditate in bed as I'm going to sleep. I'll do basically stage 1 of sleep hypnagogic meditation, but I'll talk a bit more about that as we get to the later part of the video. Some of the other key things I like to do to prep myself for bed is I like to have it to where I can come into the room when it's time to sleep and go directly to my bed and immediately start sleeping. So before that, I like to get my bed set up. So I'm very particular with my pillows. You know what I mean? Where like, I got a lot of like low back issues. And so I like to sleep on my back. But if I lie flat and I don't have like anything under my knees per se, like my low back can start to pinch and get really tight. Like, if you've ever had a professional massage done, something we do every single time, unless the person coming in specifically says they don't want it, is you put one of these 2 pillows underneath your knees to help neutralize your low back, because most people coming in to get massage get low back problems. And so that's like super crucial for me. So I'll have like, 2 or 3 pillows where my knees will be, so my knees can be up. I like to sleep with a lot of pillows, like 8 ideally. So I got all my pillows set up perfectly, making like this little pillow coffin. I got my blanket off to the side, so I don't even have to move my blanket before I lie down. So I simply plop my ass in bed, pull the blanket over me, and I'm good to go. Something else that I like to do as well, just so I can really like get into the room and immediately sleep, is I'll brush my teeth ahead of time. I like to shower directly before bed, and then most of the time my wife will go to sleep first, and so I don't want to shower downstairs because I might just wake her up in the room. So I'll shower upstairs. And so really when it's time for sleep, I'm really just walking directly in the room. My bed is set up so I don't need to have the light on to get anything situated, and I can lie down to go directly to sleep. One of the good things about showering directly before bed, aside from the fact that you're maximum clean, so your blanket and shit feels really good against your body and stuff like that, is it can help you to cool off. So when you're going to sleep, that's actually when your core body temperature is about at its lowest within a 24-hour period. It actually drops a bit more as you're sleeping, and then it starts to heat up. That's part of what causes you to wake up in the morning. So whatever you can do to drop that core body temperature can help out a lot. So you could take like a cool or cold shower. That can go a long way. Like me personally, I made my own at-home cold plunge setup where I got like this, kind of like commercial level ice maker, and I got this big tub I can fill with water. So I'll just like dump a bunch of ice in there. And of course, that's a really good way to get yourself nice and cold. Something to watch out for if you are doing that though, is if you get it like too cold, like say you got it in like, low 40s and you stay in there for a long time, or say like, you're in like the high 30s or mid 30s, so it's like really fucking cold. That's good at making you cold, but then once your body like re-neutralizes after it's kind of like warming yourself up because you're freezing so bad, your core body temperature will actually be higher than it was before you went into the cold plunge. So you might wake up in the middle of the night all hot and shit. So you can kind of watch out for that. But also kind of along those same lines, but the complete opposite, is if you have a sauna at home. So I have one of these at-home saunas you can just plug into the wall. Works really good, man. I got the infrared type. It's got to be more than 5 years old by this point, still works perfect. But saunaing before bed is amazing. I did this whole like little experiment with it. It's on my playlist somewhere buried in the sea of my videos. But that can work really well because when you go, once you're done with the sauna and your body neutralizes after, because it spent all this time trying to cool you off because you got your core body temperature so high, in the end, your core body temperature will actually be lower than it was before you went in. So that could be a really good way to go to sleep if you can dedicate, some time to saunaing before bed. Plus, it's, the sauna is really hard work. So it's like you come out, you're done, you got the fan on, you just took a shower, you're exhausted, and sleep just feels perfect by that point. Something else on the whole topic of staying cool is this guy, Matthew Walker, who's a sleep scientist out of UC Davis or Berkeley, I don't know. Somewhere out there. He wrote this book called Why We Sleep. It was really popular. It came out in, 2017 or something like that. But they actually have a recommended room temperature, which is 68 degrees. And now personally, I like it colder than that. But if you have AC, making the room cold can really help out a lot. Also though, like having good blankets and pillowcases and shit. So I got this blanket. It's called a thermal blanket. It has these holes in it. I really love it, man. I love this blanket so much that when I go on trips and shit, I pack it with me. And so this is really good because it lets the wind through, so the wind from the fan can blow through. It doesn't trap heat too much. And also it's pretty heavy as compared to like, say, like a sheet or something, where sheets are actually hotter than this blanket. They're really thin, but because there's no holes, it traps the heat. And then it's too light. I like to have some of that weight. Also, pillowcases. A few years ago, I went on like this crusade to find the fucking best, coldest pillowcases possible. And I found it. I forget the name of this case. I'll link it somewhere in the description, but it is the coldest to the touch pillowcases I've ever been able to find, and I bought a lot of shit off Amazon trying to find the best ones. It's also super soft and smooth. It's really dope. So let me think. Take shower and do that to cool off. I guess that's mostly it for that part. So what am I doing as I'm falling asleep? So something that I found worked really, really well is I've really began to learn like my falling asleep process. So this is easiest done when you can do it at a time where you're going to fall asleep quickly. So I know for a lot of people, if you are lucky enough to be able to nap in the middle of the day, for a lot of people, you can fall asleep really quickly. So you want to find situations like that. Then as you lie down to go to sleep, just pay very specific attention to the falling asleep process. And then you can essentially use that as your blueprint to follow every single night when you go to sleep. And to me, that has worked wonders. Again, I essentially use it for a hypnagogic stage 1 of sleep meditation, and that's a state we pass through every time we're falling asleep. Our mental thoughts and images get a lot more vivid and basically start to become visual. It might start off as like a flash of an image, and then eventually it'll be like a full-on moving image, almost like you're watching a movie or something like that. And so a cool way to get there, and okay, before the cool way to get there is once you know the progression of this and you can start to witness it and see it, you can know where you are in the falling asleep process, right? So okay, hey, I'm getting very close to sleep. images are flashing, you know you're about to sleep as you learn this falling asleep process. But one good way to get there is simply do the classic meditation thing where you can simply follow your breath. So a very simple way to do that is slow your breathing down. I'd say like 6 breaths a minute or less, because that's just naturally going to calm you down. You want to breathe out of your nose and not mouth breathe. For me, man, I hate mouth breathing. It drives me nuts when I'm trying to meditate, and it drives me nuts when I'm just trying to go to sleep or whatever else. So if you want a really good way to clear out a plugged nose, and this basically works all the time. If you're sick, it might clear only momentarily and then replug. But if you're like on that edge where your nose is kind of plugged, you think if you got it cleared once, it would stay clear, this is the absolute best thing to do. Just hold your breath. And really, all you gotta do is hold your breath to the point to where at least your stomach starts to uncontrollably contract. If you can get past that to where like you're uncontrollably gulping, by that point for me, it works every single time, guarantee. And you know, your body thinks you're gonna die and suffocate to death. So it will clear out whatever is in your nose to have you breathe clearer. So that works really well. Some other things is, try not to put like too much like stress on yourself to have to fall asleep within a certain time period. So for me, I give myself at least an hour to fall asleep before I start stressing about anything else, right? So that kind of gives you a nice buffer zone to lie there. For me, do this whole hypnagogic meditation thing and drift off into sleepy land that way. And then having like a circadian rhythm, right? Going to sleep at about the same time, waking up at about the same time. That can obviously work wonders and help you get a lot better, more restful sleep. And yeah, I think that's mostly it. I feel like I totally forgot something. If I did, maybe I'll splice something in at the end of this video. But with that said, we'll leave it there. Thanks for the question, and until the next video, keep your sleeping practice legit. I remember what I was going to say, and that's 2 things. So the first one is you want to keep the room as dark as possible, even to the point to where if you have a bright alarm clock, dim that shit. And then you could also get blackout curtains, so in the morning when the sun is rising, you can keep the room as dark as possible. If you can't make the room dark for whatever reason, you can sleep with an eye mask. Personally, I don't like eye masks just because I'm too kind of like paranoid for whatever reason. So I actually made like an eye pillow specifically, where it's like this thin pillow that I fill with rice actually to go over my eyes. Or you can just get like a regular pillow and put that over your eyes. That works perfectly fine too. And then most importantly, I can't believe I forgot this. This was like the biggest game changer to my sleep in the past decade. And that is the sleep with earplugs, especially if you're a light sleeper like I am, or the smallest noise always wakes me up. Put earplugs in, man. It's a huge game changer. For the longest time, kind of like the whole eye mask thing. I was just too paranoid to do that. Like, what if some bad guy comes running up in my house or something? But, my wife doesn't sleep with earplugs, so she could wake me up. I only got a dog, so if the dog barks, that shit would wake me up. They have different types of earplugs that block out more noise than others. I like the cheap, extra soft tip kind. Something that can work really good though is you gotta cut the edges off because they stick too far out. Then as you roll around and stuff like that, it's gonna get knocked out of your ear. So get the super soft tip, cut them off, put them in your ears, and you're good to go, and you'll sleep like a baby. All right, so that's it. Until the next video, keep your sleep legit.